if you're anything like I was, you've got a pedal board full of mismatched patch cables that are a little spotty from gig to another. You're always hunting for one that's going bad. They don't fit. You can't squeeze enough pedals on your pedal board. That's how I was until I discovered Tour Gear Design's patch cables. They're the smallest patch cables in the game. They're rock solid, extremely dependable, and I love what they make. And now I've partnered with Tour Gear Designs to get you 10% off your order by using the affiliate code down below in the description box. You can get 10% off using code 40WATT, 40WATT, but this deal gets even better. For my Patreon supporters, you actually are eligible for 20% off. You have to register with the same email address you use on Patreon and message the company, say you're one of my Patreon supporters, and you can get 20% off your order with Tour Gear Designs, the best patch cables in the game. This podcast is made possible in part through a partnership with TrueFire. TrueFire is the most comprehensive guitar learning experience on the internet, with over 51,000 guitar lessons from the best educators in the world. It makes TrueFire the #1 most trusted music education resource for guitar players. We as guitar players sometimes get fixated on the gear that we play, and we neglect the skill level that we play. And many of us have a hard time finding instructors locally. TrueFire bridges that gap. You can find my affiliate link below to get 40% off with my code 40WATT of your first purchase through TrueFire. Learn, practice, play, TrueFire. This podcast is made possible by the support of many wonderful people over on Patreon. If you would like to support this show and help make sure it keeps going, you can go over to patreon.com/40wattpodcast, where for as little as $3 a month, you can help make sure this show keeps happening. Thank you for all of your support. Ladies and gentlemen, 40 Watters, welcome to another episode of 40 Watt Podcast. My name is Philip. I am your host. I'm also your editor. I am also your social media manager. It's all those things. I try to do everything around here because I can't afford to hire people. But I will tell you, we're going to get that point somewhere where I'm going to get to offsource some of this editing because I hate it. But not there yet. In the meantime, while we're talking money, we're going to talk about my Patreon supporters. Here at the top of the show, I like to read off the names. Y'all, this list is getting long. Added a couple last episode. And I think once I cross 30 names, which you're very, very close, just a couple of names away, I'm going to find another way to recognize my Patreon supporters. Because once we cross 30, I'm spending like significant time reading everyone's name. But if you like me reading your names off, hey, message me over in the Discord or, hit me up on Instagram and tell me, no, keep reading it. I'll keep doing it because y'all run the show. So I want to say a quick thank you to Benjamin Rodway, Jamie Evans, Henry Klubakowski, Brian May, but not that Brian May, Heinrich Nordvang of Nordvang Custom Pedals, Tony DeGraw, Steve Rao of 60 Cycle Hum, Andrew Bimson, Julie McFarling of Labland Photography, Abe Matthews, Jordan Galash, Duncan Watson, Andy Johns, Dave Evangelista of the Guitar Dads podcast, Blake Jefferson, Nick Call, Andrew Hensley, Alan Gresham, Dan Pilver of Lewitt Audio, Scott Hamilton of the Effects Loop podcast, Andy Koning, Jim Burns, Tom Kelly, Heath Batt, Ben Fair of Electromotive Sound Co., Rick Calhoun of Honey Picks, Jeffrey Walks, and Kyle Harris. Thank you so much for your support. Literally, this happens because y'all are still here and hanging out and supporting what's going on over here at 40 Watt Podcast, and I greatly appreciate it. Now, that's all out of the way. At less than 2 minutes, see, it's totally painless. You're okay. You survived it. So, in the meantime, this week I'm joined by Markus and Izzy Reeves. How are y'all doing?
Hi, Phil. Yeah, we're doing well, thank you. Yeah. Pleasure to be on here. Thank you for inviting me back. Having me back.
Well, that's the beauty.
It's a first for me.
Well,
yeah, it's the first one for Izzy. So, but it's fun to have return guests because I sort of get to skip that. Who are you and how'd you get into this part? If you want to hear the backstory of how Markus got into what he's doing, we had a really wonderful conversation about a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago. You can go find it in season 2. So Markus, we're going to skip your backstory, your origin story, as it were. But Izzy, I'm going to give you a second. What made you? This is what's really curious to me. What made you watch the insane things your dad's doing as a lunatic, deciding to start a pedal company? And you were like, yeah, I want to do that.
Well, I suppose you can class me as a lunatic as well then.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
she's a bit of
I think
me, I suppose.
I've made no bones. It's sort of a joke now. Everyone who starts a pedal company to me is a lunatic.
Mm,
It seems like the most um self-flagellating industry to go into at this point, because there's
mm,
so many people doing it and the people are
it
so
is.
lovely, but it is
Yeah.
so hard to make yourself stand out
Mm,
as a pedal
mm.
company. So, Izzy, what made you want to do this?
I've been in and around here in the workshop for a long time and just grew to something different.
Yeah,
And
there wasn't really a moment. Sorry, I'm butting in, but there
Yeah.
wasn't really a moment where it was just like, oh, hang on a minute, let's do this. It's literally just been kind of seamless. I think the biggest moment was, I guess I asked you if you wanted to build your own pedal, and her eyes sort of lit up. And I guess that's it really. Then it was just, sorry, I'm butting in. Yeah,
you're right.
but yeah, it just went from there really.
And I suppose I'm just very lucky because I didn't have if I made that decision, I didn't have to think, right, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
It was sort of,
I've done the
logistics are already a bit sorted. So it was, easy enough decision to make.
Yeah, that makes it a lot easier. A lot of the decisions and of course you get to draw on the experience. He's already figured out the sourcing parts and all the things you need to do as you start a company. It's like, okay, where am I going to find the things I'm going to use? Who's going to do enclosures? Of course, Marcus, are you still doing your own acid etching of your enclosures?
Right there, that's the booth that I etch them in. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I figured you still were, just based on
Yeah.
seeing them. I was like, yeah, you're still doing it. So you're still doing so much of it on y'all are in house almost entirely.
Everything.
Izzy, were you already helping in the shop before you started making your own pedals?
Yeah, here and there, and a lot of spying, I suppose. Sort of hanging about when I have free time. But
mostly testing components. I put her to work on the stuff that just bores me to tears, to be honest, that I do.
I really enjoyed it.
I know you find it really therapeutic, which is a result for me, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's very solid.
Yeah, so
in conversations with Mike Piera over at Analog Man and our previous conversations, the testing of components, especially if you want to use germanium, like that is so time consuming, and it is so.
Absolutely.
It's the kind of work you put music on in the background and you just do it, just step by step.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of the unseen things of a lot of pedals is that I mean, we test. I don't test resistors because I get 1%. I get quite expensive 1% tolerance resistors, but I still test capacitors.
Yeah,
and some of the pedals have quite a lot of capacitors in them as well. So, all of those things are checked for tolerance and kind of lined up, and so that's the stuff that's a little bit unseen and unheard of, because it's not particularly sexy. So that's the thing that sort of Izzy was doing, and a lot of the batches of old transistors that I've got. Luckily, I use not luckily, but I use silicon predominantly, so I don't have all that jazz with the germanium being just all over the place.
And it really is.
It really is. Yeah, absolutely. But I some of my halls of transistors are ungraded, so I've got I think there's boxes and boxes and boxes up there, and I've got like a batch of nearly 5,500 of a particular transistor that's really popular, but they're ungraded, so they need to be waded through and pull out the specific numbers that I need for those pedals. The others are still usable, just not in that particular pedal, So and that's the bit you like, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just put some. I don't put Siamese Dream on and you're away, aren't you? So
I think it's just something I ended up really enjoying. So, and I think it's just a bit of you and a bit of me.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
I think as well, growing up with all the different jobs that have sort of slotted into this as well, and the things that you used to, you know, the tin can guitars that you used to make, and the music that we listened to and everything, it's all sort of ended up slotting together. In here.
Yeah.
That's pretty. It's pretty fantastic. And also, and so I watched recently, y'all were on a Q&A with That Pedal Show. Of course, I watch it every time they do it. Usually I have to watch it after the fact because I had a standing meeting at the time that they normally do it. Actually, I just thought about it. I don't have that standing meeting anymore. I'm officially done with that. So I can actually watch live. Look at that.
Yeah.
But you talked about some of that, just getting into it, and definitely talked about the whole having your daughter work with you and how fun that is to have it inside the family. And was it for either one of you, was there a moment where you're like, oh, I don't know, do I really want to do no?
From me, from my point of view, obviously I can't answer for Izzy, but no, I'm like, this is absolutely a winning situation for me. I don't think it'd either be me continuing on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'd let anybody else in, to be honest. I'm too. I don't know about being control freak, but I'm just too. People are buying a bit of me. When they buy these pedals, it's not just about the pedals. It's about what I do, what I bring to the party. All that sort of stuff. And
you're very particular, but I'm very particular in the same way.
Yeah. So I couldn't hand that off to somebody and hand on heart be saying to people, this is, you're buying the same thing. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think.
And to say, get on with it. Yeah, okay, bye.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I can trust. Unbelievably, Izzy Soldering is. I'm absolutely ruined by the fact that it took me best part of 15 years to get as good as she did in probably a week. And that's no joke. That's absolutely no joke.
Yeah, it's frustrating, isn't it? It's actually frustrating.
What? But I have to console myself with the fact that I've taken a long time to. This is what I'm telling myself anyway. I've taken a long time to define what solder, what tools, what stuff I use, and I kind of handed that straight to Izzy.
Yeah, I had no trial and error. I had a leg up in that sense where I didn't have trial and error because I knew what solder, what equipment to actually use.
And I was actually saying to you the other day, no, it was today, wasn't it? That I think what I might actually do is get some really awful solder, some cheap solder from eBay, just so she can get, oh, that's what it is. That's what pain is when it comes to soldering, So
just some torture in the spare time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I've got a couple of spare rolls of really awful unleaded solder. I'll be happy to donate to the cause if you want to see how bad it can truly be. I hate every time I have to use it. So I need I don't solder enough though to. I haven't bothered to replace it because I use it like once every maybe 7 months. I need to fix a cable, or I need to. A couple of times I've bought pedals where the battery clip has come just rotted out and I had to replace it. But
just on that note, one of the things that really can improve what you're doing if you're struggling with your solder is to get some there's like a waxy. I was looking around for the tube of it somewhere. It's some use extra flux.
Oh, really?
Get a little. You can get this called tacky flux, and just put a little. It comes in a little syringe. Put it on the point where, and it will help everything flow better. There we go.
Oh, very interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's the kiddie, and that will do wonders if you're using lower quality solder or unleaded.
Yeah, and it's
that's,
funny.
That's $5, $10 maybe.
That's a great tip, because I know I'm not alone in this. I've listened to other people. I'm in a group with a bunch of other pedal builders, and I hear people wanting to get into it, or maybe they're not builders at all, but they do want to do things like repair their own cables or make their own cables, which I think is a great entry point to soldering and doing this. But of course, we with slight advantage. It's still a little easier over here in the U.S. for us to get leaded solder if we want to, but I still don't recommend it. Or if you're going to, obviously, listeners, if you're just determined to use leaded solder, please use a respirator. Please do not breathe that stuff in. Just look up lead poisoning. Just look it up.
Yeah, there's a lot of it's a very complicated issue, actually, solder. So especially between the lead and the unleaded. Traditionally, leaded solder it's actually, the lead is not actually in the fumes.
Oh, really?
Okay. Yeah, the fumes with traditional leaded solder is in the rosin-based flux. That's the stuff that is carcinogenic. It's just horrible. Asthma, all that stuff. The only issue with lead-based solder is actually the skin contact. Okay,
gotcha.
so as long as you don't eat your sandwiches while you're soldering and you keep your hands clean, the lead side of things is fairly well mitigated, actually. But the solder, you have to get specific. There's stuff called no clean solder now, which is much cleaner as far as the respiration. But absolutely still use respiration. But yeah, leaded solder's come a long way, and I would say if you're starting off and you're not intending to go commercial, I would actually encourage people to use. Contrary to what you just said, Phil, apologies, but
feel free to contradict me. You're the professional here.
I would actually encourage people to use leaded solder if they're just hobbyists. Be careful, find the right solder, make sure it's rosin free, and you will find that you enjoy it a million times more straight off the bat because it's easier to do.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I've always been told. And of course, I didn't realize it because in the earliest days of me using, and listeners, I apologize if I go back and forth between solder and solder because I pick up the way people pronounce words, and so I will bounce back and forth between the American pronunciation and the UK pronunciation. So listeners, just it's fine. Language is fluid, and the rules really don't matter. We make them all up anyway,
as long as we understand.
Exactly.
It's communication.
But like the earliest days of me fixing patch cables, or the little bit of I've repaired amps, but not in the way like people who are actual amp techs repair amps. For me, it's always been, oh, I looked in and there's a capacitor that's obviously blown. I can replace that. But if you need me to diagnose your amp, y'all don't start sending me nothing, because we're never going to get it back. I'll never fix it. It'll just sit in the room somewhere. But I had this like giant roll of solder that I'd gotten from like Radio Shack in like the early 90s.
Oh, wow.
And so it was great, but I used it so very little that it lasted me a long time.
It will do.
And then I ran out and I bought more, and I was like, this is terrible. How does anyone use any of this? And so it felt like relearning how to solder.
Yeah. It's such a minefield, the amount of different types of solder and all the different makeups and different constitutions and all that stuff. Is just like, I found one that works. I'm using it. That's the way you've got to stick to it.
Really.
Yeah.
So going back to the building of pedals, and so you've got your regular series that are, and I've got them pulled up here. So viewers, I apologize for the light flashing in my face as I switch back and forth between websites. And so looking at your point-to-point series, because the stuff in the daughter board series, which we did not say, the pedals that Izzy is making, they're actually they're on a PC board. They're still hand wired, still hand soldered, all that stuff, but they're actually on a board rather than the absolutely certifiably insane way you build your pedals. It's ludicrous. I still think it's ridiculous to me, but there's works of freaking art. But
Thank you. Yeah,
I like that there's a very, even down to the enclosure you use for the daughter board series, it's different. You've definitely made sure that there is a designation between the two. I think that's
absolutely.
interesting. Is that something that'll go forward as you go for? So it's like, so Izzy has her very own thing, and you've got your own thing, and it's not like, oh, they're just all Reeves Electro, and they are all Reeves Electro. But
yeah, that was a very conscious decision to kind of. I didn't. Can't remember where it really came from, but I just didn't want to. There were things that I wanted to do that I don't have time to do. I don't have the resources really. There's ideas that I had in my head basically, and when this whole thing came together, the daughter board series came together. Initially, it was a two-way conversation, but obviously I brought a lot of the technical weight to the table, and so a lot of those ideas came forward from me that I've been sat with for the last 5-6 years, and so they've come forward. So they're the first four pedals in a daughter board series will be from that kind of that backlog of ideas that I've had, so lots coming up in there.
Yeah, so that was actually the next question. So you already know what the next few you're going to build are. Y'all are prepped. Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Now question. And Izzy, do you play guitar as well? Or you just enjoy music? No. So I say that as no shade. You have no idea the number of drummers I've had on this podcast who build pedals, and they're like, I don't even play guitar. So it's like,
yeah. No, I've tried, and I will continue to try, and I will get better. But so far, for how many years has Dad tried to put a guitar in my hands?
Yeah, but I mean, yeah.
We switched to ukulele at one point when I was about 11, and that lasted a good 6 months.
Yeah. But we are going on guitar safari.
We are
on Monday.
Yeah.
So down to Anderton's in Guildford in Surrey. Yeah.
A great guitar will make me a great guitar player, won't it?
Exactly. Well,
that's how it works.
That's what I've told myself about the last 40 guitars I've bought.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Yeah. But I'm definitely in the school of thought that you've got to look at it and want to play it. As far as when you're a beginner or intermediate, well, anywhere really. But when you're learning, when you're that first real pain part of it, where it's just really frustrating to do.
Yeah.
You've got to look at that thing. And go, oh, I want to pick that thing that just looks so cool. I want to pick it up and play it. And
it makes me want to sacrifice my nails.
Oh no. Yeah.
I normally have very long nails, but no more.
That's the thing.
Yeah. That is definitely a thing. I have seen a couple of players. It's very rare, but a couple of players over the years who have been able to make it work with longer. I won't say long, just longer nails. And I'm like,
I can't do what Dolly Parton does with the sideways fingers. I can't.
Yeah, I was just. She was one of the ones I was thinking of. I was like, I don't know how she does it.
Insane. And she's a really good country fingerpicking guitar player. She's not no slouch.
No, she's very good, and there's some other players, and I'm like, I don't understand. Now the right hand, I totally get it. I tried to get into classical guitar at one point. I failed miserably. Just I learned like a couple of like the beginning like preludes, and I had like the Segovia Etudes book, and I was like, this is awful. I'm so bad at this.
Yeah.
But so I understand the right hand nails, but the left hand, that just I just imagine snagging a nail on a string. Of course, Marcus, you and I play similar music, playing some of the more raucous blues and really digging in and just ripping. I was like, just the idea hurts.
Yeah, I couldn't. Well, I've never had obviously never had nails. I tried. Now I did. So I've gone through lots of different picking techniques actually, and at one point I used to have an acrylic nail. I used to play with my when I was an acoustic player. I used to have an acrylic nail on my index finger, and that was quite good. I used to play without a pick, and so I'd kind of get both. You know, you could use it like a pick, and
Right.
also use it finger picking as well. And the nail bar, I always used to amuse the nail bar that I went into to get my rock and roll fingernail
I think
chopped
that's
up.
how Johnny Highland does it. Johnny Highland
Yeah,
does acrylic nails for his
yeah,
country chicken picking stuff that he does, and
yeah. There's a lot
he
of
says
sorry, a lot of
oh,
classical guitar players. They put I don't know what a ping pong ball, a table tennis ball. They cut them open and super glue them on the inside of the nails, and it's
I'm making myself not cringe or vomit
yeah,
at the idea
yeah,
of putting anything under my nail. Just like
yeah,
I can't do it. So yeah, that to play that you're gonna have to sacrifice the nails a little bit. It's not gonna,
yeah,
but it's one of those things. So when you were telling the story, and I think I told this story last week on my episode with Mark from Summer School Electronics. Some people just adapt to things, and it's sort of
yeah,
how Izzy, you just started soldering, and you're good, you're fine. You obviously got an advantage over some of the equipment and the technical know-how, but it was the same way my wife decided she wanted to learn a little guitar at some point, and so I showed her some chords, and within a half hour of picking it up for the first time, she's playing songs in time.
no.
And I'm like, that took me 6 months to a year to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
to
yeah,
that
yeah,
point.
absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. Going
And she's
from
doing it
G to
in 40
D,
minutes, and then she's never picked it up again. She's like, oh, that was fun, I'm done. It's like, oh, I
easy come,
can't
easy
stand.
go. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. The same with a lot of athletes, naturally talented athletes. They tend to their careers tend to be very short because they're just like, nah, I'm done. Whereas the
yeah,
ones that have had to really, really work at it are the ones that actually scale the heights. You know, so
yeah.
yeah,
Have the long lasting careers. They don't burn out quite as fast, and
yeah,
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 it's such a fascinating thing. But I think it's a really good point you made about, and I tell people this all the time. Because some people like to say, oh, well, it doesn't matter what it looks like. It just matters what it sounds like. No, it absolutely matters what it looks
mm,
like,
mm,
because I need to want to play this.
yeah,
I need to
absolutely.
look at it and enjoy it.
Mm. I think there
I
are
think Mick on that pedal show says all the time the most important thing about a guitar is what it looks like,
the
what it
three
looks like,
most important. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
three most
yeah,
things: what it
yeah,
looks like, what it looks like, what it looks like. Because you got to want to play it, and it's the same way I feel about the argument about going direct versus having an amp on stage. And it's like,
yeah.
I've done the direct thing. It doesn't make me excited.
No,
I
no,
get excited about an amplifier, behind me, and it
yeah,
isn't about volume for me. I like
mm,
volume, but it isn't about volume. It's just I like the way the amp reacts.
yeah,
We really talked about this last week. I like the way I like the when there's sound on stage, and I sort of get
mm,
lost in it a little bit.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And it's something we are. We don't realise how accurate the human senses are, and I think that that nanosecond, that absolute split second of of delay, or when a live amp reacts just so much faster, you know, when you're playing it, and I feel that if there's a disconnect,
yeah,
with digital, and I just yeah, I, I dare say if somebody said, blindfold test, I wouldn't be able to say that's digital, that's not digital, but I'd probably go, I'm not really feeling that one, but I'm feeling that one,
yeah,
not knowing, yeah. So it's very contentious, and I also, the flip side of that is that I think it's uh, we're not all built the same.
mm-hmm,
So there are generally some people who don't care what their rig looks like, don't care what their guitar looks like, don't care what anything looks like, don't care what they look like, and absolutely love it. So I think it's a case of, if it's something that you're attracted to, just run with it. And if you're not, then let whoever, there's plenty of room for everybody in there.
Right, because there's obviously someone out there buying headless guitars. It's not me.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
But somebody's buying them.
Somebody's buying and loving them. And they look at that headless guitar and go, I'm going to pick that up and I'm going to play some more prog rock. I don't know what you play on a headless guitar.
Yeah, I don't either. I've picked up a few in recent months. The last time I was in Nashville, they had a couple of Strandbergs at Eastside Music, and I think it was Strandberg. I'm pretty sure. No, it was absolutely Strandberg, because they have that really. The back of the neck is like, the first time you see it, it's really awkward because it's not rounded like a guitar. It's got these angles on the neck that it was super awkward. No one ever explained that to me. I didn't know what I was walking into.
It's sort of faceted, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, the faceted is a great way to put it. And it's fine. It played great. I even picked up one that had fan frets, and I barely noticed the fan frets, But ultimately, I'm holding this thing, and I'm like, this just feels foreign. It doesn't look attractive to me, because let's be honest, it doesn't look like anything any of my heroes play or what my image of a guitarist is. And so it doesn't appeal to me, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Obviously it's not. There are some players who are way better than I will ever be using them incredibly.
Yeah, it's
I think they're ugly.
Yeah, it's an aesthetic, I think, that I go to guitar shows a fair bit and walk around, and man, just the gamut of different types of guitars and styles of guitars there are astounds me, and what people will buy is so far out of my kind of zone of acceptability, if you like, and because that's quite narrow. Give me a blackguard, I'm done. But then there's these things with dragons carved in them, and LEDs, and it's like, oh, and somebody's going to buy that and they're going to love it.
Yeah.
I
saw this guitar.
You probably know them on World of Warcraft.
What's that?
You probably know them off World of Warcraft.
Oh yeah. Well, honestly, jokingly enough, the headless guitars often look like a weapon out of World of Warcraft, where I should be holding it by the neck and wielding it like an axe. Yeah. So it's fine. It's someone's thing. I'm not here to tell them it's bad. I'm here to just say it doesn't appeal to me. I think they're ugly. Everyone's got their own tastes. I'll tell you about an interesting guitar I came across. So I went to Fretboard Summit in Chicago a few weeks ago, maybe a little over a month ago. And there's a builder there that I got to talking to him, got to know him a little bit, named Justin Motander. And he's out of San Diego. And he had, and I told him, his style for a lot of his guitars really isn't my aesthetic. But they played great. They sounded great. But he had this one that, again, was not for me, but I thought it was so rad. You made me think of this, so we got to talk about this for a second. He had this system where he had carved out the back of a guitar, and he and his dad had designed, with an Arduino in the back of it, a system of automated pickup switching. So you could create it so that it would automate the switching of the pickups instead of a regular switch. And you could have it set so that it starts a timed switching, and it sounded like tremolo.
Oh.
Yeah, and he had different programs where the switching could even be changed, where the switching is like a seamless sine wave between them, or it's square wave, just stops one and starts another. And you could design it where, so it had 3 pickups. You could design it where it goes 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, or it could go 1 2 3 3 2 1 1 2 3 1 3 2 1, or whatever pattern you wanted.
Well, that sounds insane.
It was absolutely insane. I have a video. I need to remember to send it to
And
you.
that's, I suppose, if it's Arduino, then that's not one. It's only one step away to go MIDI with that, then, isn't it?
That's what I was thinking. And it's still
Yeah,
in there. They're still prototyping it. They've
yeah,
still, it's not something they're releasing entirely yet, but they had it at the show.
that sounds
And
cool.
oh, it was super cool. I've never heard a tremolo that sounds quite like it.
I've been no, no. I mean, the reason I mentioned MIDI is I've been looking. Not that I'm going to make MIDI pedals, but I've just kind of I know a couple of sort of pit band players, and the MIDI thing. I didn't realise just how far-reaching MIDI
Mm-hmm.
has become now with like things like pit bands. The
Yeah.
MIDI tracks will switch their boards.
Yep.
So
I
they'll be
I
away from their boards. The chorus will come in, and then their tremolo comes on at the chorus, or the fuzz comes on when their time's for solo. They don't have to do anything.
Nope. I've played in some pit bands over the years, and at my most recent one, which at this point was pre-COVID, I've not played in one since the pandemic, and since I moved away from the group that was down where I was living before.
Mm.
But they had a system. I was in this pit. There were two guitar players.
Mm.
There was a bassist. There was a drum kit player playing an electronic kit.
Yeah.
And then there were 5 keys players and an electric percussion player who was playing like this electronic mallet, marimba style instrument, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And now the guitars weren't on this system, but I've heard of them being on it. I didn't have a MIDI rig at that time,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
anything that was set up that way. But all of the keys players, they were all plugged in. They had the music director who's also playing keys. He's not just directing,
Mm.
because it's small theater, so everybody's doing everything,
Yeah.
right? And we did Mamma Mia, which
Okay.
is all ABBA, which was great. It was a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we
There's a lot going on in those songs.
there is a lot going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
we had
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
guitar players, because we had
Yeah.
constant things where somebody's got to be playing acoustic, but
That's
there's also
so
electric,
clever.
or
It's
there's a
so
12
cleverly
string
written.
that's got to be there, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
The most nerve-wracking thing is there's a scene in the movie where one of the actors is playing guitar,
Mm.
and I had the guitar part when he's on stage playing, so I had to be able to see him to
Oh wow.
time my playing to his movements,
Yeah.
so that it
Yeah.
actually looked like it. That was kind of nerve-wracking, but yeah, all the keys players were all synced via MIDI
Yeah.
on a master. They were using main stage,
Yeah.
on a master main stage set, and all of their sounds changed. All they're doing is reading notes on the page the entire
Yeah.
time. They
Absolutely. I
never
don't
do
have to worry
anything.
about that. Yeah. It was, well, obviously it's the same. Extend that to pedal boards. It's just bonkers.
And drummers,
Yeah.
electronic kits are doing the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
thing.
Well, it's like, well, this one's, well, okay, so we need John Bonham at the Shea Stadium. Okay, no problems. Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
and this one we need nothing but timpani. There's no
Yeah,
actual kit on this one, so
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And then we put the fart pedal on as well.
I mean, legitimately, the drummer becomes all the random sound effects too, because it just
Yeah,
gets to that point. Hey, your first tom is now a thunder crash. That's
yeah,
what it is. Just time
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Triggers.
so MIDI is
Anyway,
it's got a value. It's definitely something that's, especially now with MIDI 2.0. I have a few pedals that have the mini jack for MIDI
hmm
now, which is great, not to have that, quarter sized MIDI plug on the back of my pedal.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. Routing nightmare as well. Those old plugs because they're big and they come out, a mile.
Yeah.
But
I bought some
yeah,
of the hammer style cables back when I did have some MIDI set up on my pedal board, and they were
okay,
better, but they were still, you know, bottle cap
it's
size
nice.
coming out of the back of your pedal. And
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
if you're
So,
one of these people that wants to cram as many pedals as possible on your pedal board, they get in the way.
yeah, they do. Yeah. I've always been a minimalist with my pedal board though. I've got 3 drives and a couple of modulations on a big pedal board. Because I'm about the song, and I'll if I got them all close together, especially if it's 2 tiered, they're close together. I'll just be like, bang, and everything's on. So it doesn't. It's not happening. So I need lots of room. Yeah.
I've got what I would call a medium-sized board. My big board is my medium-sized board. Maybe I've actually got it behind me. I'll grab it and show you when we take a break here in just a minute. But it's what I would call a medium-sized board in today's age of some pretty spectacularly massive pedal boards.
Yeah. Yeah.
But half the time I'm taking a Nano Plus pedal board that I've got 3 or 4 pedals max on there, and one of them's a tuner. I have a headstock tuner. I hate using them live. I don't want to use them.
No.
So
no.
I like
when you move on to your Steinberg, you're not going to have a place to hang it, are you?
That's a great point. That's why you actually don't want a headless guitar, because you're actually tied to a pedal tuner.
Yeah.
You gain the space on your guitar and you lose it on your pedal board. There you go. We just proved why you shouldn't have those guitars. No, it's fine. Yeah. Hopefully no one from Steinberger actually listens to this podcast and hears me hating on them.
Oh.
So are you gigging much lately? Are you playing much?
No, I haven't. I've a couple of open mics coming up that I might go to. I do a lot. I've always done a bit of acoustic stuff. But no, I haven't gigged. One gig post pandemic with my band.
Last summer, wasn't it?
Last summer, yeah. Big old do, 5,000 people.
Oh wow.
We got up and did it, and then about 2 weeks later, my the guy that plays drums with me had a freak accident putting his bins out, and a spiral fracture in his hi-hat leg, and he's had to stop playing. He's done.
Oh man, that's awful.
Yeah, so
I've had a spiral fracture on my right leg when I was much younger, so can relate.
Yeah, it took him a while, and I think about 18 months into treatment, he's basically going to have another operation on it. It's not good. So I mean, and the connection I had with Mark was instant. When crikey, 6, 7, 8, I don't know, 10 years ago maybe when we started playing. I don't know, I've lost count. And I kind of got to the point where I'm like, do we want to go through all that kind of rigmarole of scratching my way with various people, finding musicians that do it, that kind of mesh. And also, I have to say, the part of my psyche, or my ego, if you like, that is fed by gigging.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like that's kind of a little bit satisfied with the pedal building.
Okay.
Now, because it has, it's taken off. It's doing very well.
Yeah.
Touch wood. Thank you, everybody, for your support. And I don't feel frustrated about not gigging. I still play loud guitar.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Oh, it's behind me.
Yeah.
What's good having a space like that if you can't
cat
turn
open
it
the door, then close the door as he
Sorry,
left.
Phil, I thought a cat came into the room.
Wait, the cat opened it and closed the door. It's such a polite cat.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, he managed to break my slide last time, didn't he? So
yeah, he did. He did. Like just jumped off the top shelf above your head there.
Actually, he's not so freaking polite.
No.
Well, no, bless him. I a couple of nights ago, I came back out to the workshop I'd left my phone in here, and he's such a needy little so-and-so. He literally follows me everywhere. Followed me out here. I didn't switch the lights on in here. Got my phone. Straight back out, locked the door, went away. He was in here all night.
Oh no.
Poor thing. Of course, call of nature.
Of course.
And he's done a big one in the corner, and then he's had a pee as well, and it absolutely reeks. They can't get rid of it. Sorry.
It doesn't smell anymore.
It doesn't
it's
smell
okay.
It took a couple of days to get rid of it. So sorry, anybody, if you're eating this while you're eating this while you're having your podcast. You know what I'm saying?
Well, no, totally get it. There's a reason I don't have cats. I'm just not a cat person. It's fine.
Me too.
I make jokes about cats. When you're a dog person and you're not a cat person, you make the jokes. It's almost like a fun rivalry. You're not. I don't actually hate cats, but I love talking about how they're all assholes. And that's part of why I don't have them.
Well,
I'm not a cat person.
Oh, good. We can get along then, Izzy. It's cats. I don't want to have to clean out a box. I want something I can just open. Now, I have seen cats that end up getting like house trained. Like you open the door, they'll go do their business outside and they'll come back in. I'm like, that's the kind of cat I need. I just have no time to teach them to do that.
Ours go outside. We don't have we don't have litter box. We've got a cat flap. We've got a cat flap that reads their chip in the net. So only opens for them. They go and do their business out in the workshop, obviously.
Yeah, but, obviously. That is my number one complaint about cats is the whole litter box situation. I'm like, I don't want to have to deal with that.
No.
It's the shedding. They like sense it when I come in, I think. So they're like, we know she doesn't like us that much. Let's swarm.
Let's dump fur everywhere.
The cat shedding can be a thing. I used to have actually it was someone I was dating years and years and years ago. And here's the issue: if you get a cat that doesn't shed, they are also hideously ugly. And if anyone tries to tell me that one of those hairless or like extremely short-haired cats are not hideous, they're terrifying. And if you think they're attractive, I really need you to go see an optometrist because
I would say a psychologist, actually, to be honest.
It's its whole thing. So you talked about drummers,
yes.
and I do want to mention this because we talked about there was a chat going on over in the 40 Watt podcast Discord. Which listeners, if you're a Discord user, come on over to the Discord server. It is not just for Patreon supporters. Patreon supporters get their own little private channel to chat, which is it's real quiet. We don't hold anything back from anybody, but. We talked about this whole thing about drummers, and when you find a good drummer that you connect with, you get picky about drummers. And I don't mean to be, but it's like I had a very good situation, Izzy, like you in, picking up building pedals. You got to build on, you basically had all the difficulties that a lot of people go through done already. I started my first band as a front person. I had the best drummer I've ever played with. And I've judged every drummer since then against him. And I've played with some great drummers, but nobody's been him. He listens. If you get a drummer that listens to you as a front person, latch on, just hold on, pay their rent, whatever you have to do, just keep that drummer. And then just had great feel, great pocket, great style. But of course, when you find one of those drummers, everyone else has found that drummer too.
Everyone's, absolutely. That was his thing with Mark for a while. He was very much in demand. But a little bit like myself, he restores vintage drums. So he's a lifer, basically. He doesn't do anything else. And he kind of gets his a lot of his satisfaction from that. So that his drum world is not just playing; it's restoring as well. When we started working together, he got more picky as well. I think with who he played with. So, once he'd found that sort of chemistry, luckily for me, he was like, "Oh, okay, well, this is the gig then." Great. You're absolutely right with, drummers that listen. There's not many. And I don't know whether it's because they're just deaf.
I think, honestly, it's probably hard for them to listen at some of the volume people play at. And so it's not actually a shade on the drummer necessarily. It isn't just that they don't want to listen. it gets hard when they've got a snare literally in their ear every 2 measures. I get
I
to
think,
walk away from the snare drum.
yeah. Also, I think it is the whole chemistry thing, you know, where there are players that come together and they all play in a certain style that leaves the gaps in the right places for the other person, you
Yeah.
know. And if you're, you
It's
know,
like a unity thing.
yeah, exactly, yeah. So, you know, if you're a bass player and you're playing, you know, forward of the time, and you know the drummers feel is kind of playing just behind the beat, that's not going to work. But at the same point,
No.
you know, if you're a guitar player and you play on the time exactly the same as the vocalist, it's just that's not going to work either. So there's so many things that have to come together, and yeah, chemistry is a rare thing. I mean, you look at the Who, for instance. Um, Basically, I mean, I'll call Roger Daltrey's voice an instrument as well. You've got four lead instrument players.
Yeah.
They're all lead players. They're all flashy, you know, check my chops players. But for some reason, they all left gaps where the other one played, and it was perfect.
Right.
You know.
I think the same way about, and I know that it's cliche, I know that it is trite, but I will wax poetic about my love for Led Zeppelin
Yeah.
until the
Yeah.
day I die.
Yeah.
And I think part of it, and it was before I was really a musician, I got into Led Zeppelin, or just as I was learning to play guitar, like I didn't really care, you know, about certain bands and whatnot. And a friend of mine got me into them. But you listen to the way that they come together as a unit, because yes, listeners, I'm going to tell you all those things you hear about, well, Jimmy Page was kind of a sloppy guitar player. Yeah, he was. But it was a style he did. It wasn't necessarily it. People think sloppy and bad are the same thing. No, no, no. His
No.
style of guitar playing was a little loose,
Yeah.
and that could work because John Bonham had just pockets that you could put a car in.
Yeah.
And so he
If
would
he,
play this behind the beat, this loose
yeah,
beat, but he was also so consistent. And it didn't shift, it didn't move, it was there. And
absolutely.
then the glue, I think the unsung absolute all-star of that band will always be John Paul Jones,
Well, it's a
who
musical
did,
director, wasn't he? Really, you
yeah,
know,
yeah, he was a music
he was,
director.
yeah, yeah. You know,
He
he was the one that kind of did the arrangements, that did everything. You know, so yeah, I absolutely agree. And the thing with Jimmy Page, if he was a tight and you know disciplined guitar player, it would sound like Tosh,
Yeah.
because it would be too sterile. The whole thing with it's like you've got this kind of this backbone going on, and then you've just got this firebrand coming in, going all over the place, all over the top, and that's what makes Led Zeppelin what it is.
Right.
You know,
I think there was an episode that Rick Beato did where he took Led Zeppelin and he put Beat Detective in and aligned it to a
oh,
grid so that it was
okay,
perfect.
yeah, really,
And
yeah,
listening to it gave me like Uncanny Valley vibes, like
yeah,
where
yeah,
this doesn't feel human
yeah,
anymore.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
it lost the breath a little
Yeah,
bit.
I mean, there's a lot of people do, you know, done that, and some bands they kind of I don't know whether it was with Bonham, but it was they the verse was one tempo, chorus went up, you know, 3 beats a minute or four or whatever, and then came back down to exactly the same tempo, uh, you know, as a live band, you know, live recording, no click track, nothing. Um, that's you know, kind of that's feel. That really
Yep.
is feel, you know, and they don't even know they're doing it.
Right, exactly. They
No,
didn't sit down and say, "Hey guys, when we get to the chorus, let's speed it up
yeah,
by
just a
exactly
bit.
this amount,
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
bit, but we've got to
yeah,
come back to this."
yeah.
No, they just did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It it boggles my, and that's honestly, it's all about the drummer. It's
Yeah,
100% about the drummer being
yeah,
able to do that, because if your drummer can't, they can't, and that's
yeah,
fine. That doesn't mean they're a bad drummer. It just means maybe the thing you're doing or the exact lineup you're using doesn't work. It's just
yeah.
not going to work for what you want to do.
Drummer fact. Okay,
Okay.
Mark, my drummer, is also a drum tutor. Okay, and there was always a clip when we were running through new songs. I'd be like, "Oh, okay, let's why don't we try this bit double time?" Okay, and we'd go into it, and he would slow down. Okay, and I'm like, "No, I said double time." He's like, "Yeah, that's double time." And most musicians, self-taught musicians, would think double time is twice as fast.
Right.
Okay, a trained drummer, double time is basically you're making
Using
it twice as
time.
long. Double
Oh,
time
so
is half as fast.
see, so I used to do with my drummer, who is, he's been playing since he was 5, and I think
Yeah.
he just turned, he's in his late 30s now. So he's been playing a long, long time.
Uh-huh.
And and a lot of the songs that I played with him when we started my group were just songs that we had been playing with other groups too, because we're a blues cover band. Like, we're just finding the songs we like and we're playing.
Yeah.
We're picking up these covers. We used to do Catfish Blues, which is an old Muddy Waters tune.
Yeah.
Uh, and Hendrix covered it as well. I was more familiar actually with the Muddy Waters version than the Hendrix version.
I actually listened to
But
it, the Hendrix version yesterday.
it's a
Yeah.
great song.
Oh,
And
it's
so,
yeah.
but it's also got a similar groove to Voodoo Child if you play it in a certain way.
Yeah, I
And
can
so
see
I
that.
actually do
Yeah.
a mashup between the two sometimes. But
Excuse me.
the drummer I play with, he used to. That was a song that gave him so much room to play, because he would do these things where he would go into, without the rest of us changing, he would go into a double time and line it up, and we never
Yeah.
changed. We're still
Oh, cool.
playing the exact same time, and he'd do
Yeah.
the same thing with a halftime in the same song. And I was like,
Yeah.
it's so great to see a drummer that plays with those things. And
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for a halftime break. I'm absolutely a sucker for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So we're coming up close to the end of the main episode, but I do have I have at least one question I want to make sure that I
Sure.
ask, because this is my selfish question. And then we'll get over to the Patreon episode. Listeners, we're going to chat on Patreon. If you want to catch the rest of that conversation, it's patreon.com/40watt podcast. You can get in pretty cheaply. You can see all the prices over there. For $5 a month, though, you get extra content every episode. And I've been asking a set question for the back half of this season, and it's been really interesting. Markus and Izzy don't know what the question is yet, and I'm not going to give it away until we get over there. So they're going to hear it for the first time, and then they have to answer. I'm going to make y'all give me a list. We'll just say that.
Okay.
So with the introduction of, and I know you can't really give anything away, but with the introduction of the Daughterboard series, so to this point, you've really been fuzz and drive. That's what you're doing. I get, and makes sense, because the circuits are few enough components that you can do what you do, Markus, with the way you design. Because once you get to too many components, you can't do what you do and fit it in an enclosure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You would need an enclosure the size of a laptop to do some pedals.
Yeah, exactly.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But with the introduction of the Daughterboard series, is there any plans to maybe get into things like a modulation pedal? Because I know some tremolo pedals could fit in what y'all are doing, or I'm a tremolo junkie, but
It's not on
or
my
something
mind.
besides fuzz and drive.
Yeah, no, I'm a fuzz and drive junkie, to be honest. So yeah, that, I mean, that's something that
not on the current lineup.
Not on the current lineup. No.
Okay.
We're kind of, and myself, and I think Izzy's the same. Is we just kind of follow our nose. That's what's worked for me, and I never say never. But at the same point, at the moment, there's nothing on the horizon.
Okay.
The Patreon listeners can hear what's on the horizon, though.
Oh, look at that. Oh, we've got a little spoiler for the Patreon listeners. You get to hear what's coming up. And I won't talk about it outside of that episode either. So you're not going to trick me into telling you. So that's just how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Markus, Izzy, thank you all for coming on.
No problems.
And
thank you.
Chatting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
and so
it.
a couple of things real quick. Where can everyone find y'all when they look for you?
Okay. So it's the website is www.reeveselectro.co.uk. The Instagram is Reeves Electro. And that's really it, to be honest. I keep it simple.
And join the mailing list to stay updated.
Yeah, I'm on the mailing list. I've yet to be able to jump on one because it's not been the right situation yet for me to order one. But every time the email goes out, I'm like, oh, can I do it? No, I'm not ready. It's gonna happen though, because I'm too much of a fuzz junkie not to have one. So it's gonna happen. But yeah, get on the mailing list, y'all. All the links are down in the description below, so you can find them there in case you are driving and should not be writing things down while you're listening to this. You can just find the links there. If you're on YouTube, the links are down in the description as well. While you're down there, click subscribe, click this bell icon, click thumbs up, click follow, whatever the device or platform you're using lets you stay abreast of 40 Watt Podcast coming out. Click that button. Make sure to leave a review. They help a ton. Please say nice things. If you have something nasty to say, come talk to me first. Let's see if it wasn't a misunderstanding before you're mean. Other than that, we're going to move over to Patreon. I appreciate all of y'all hanging out, listening, being a part of the 40 Watt world. No, I can't say that, can I? Keith's going to get mad at me at 5 Watt world. Yeah, I can't say that. Sorry, back that up. Thanks for being 40 Watters. I appreciate all of you. And until next time, be good to yourselves, be kind to each other, and make some noise.